Revenant Tides. Prologue, the last broadcast. Memory is not lost, it is sealed. And it sings. Date, June 7th, 2045. Location, Abyss Crown. Deep Sea Research Station. Mid-Atlantic Trench depth, 10,500 meters. Status, offline transmission. Type, Emergency Burst Yunsa Blacknet Protocol. The transmission was short, garbled, torn apart by static and pressure and time, but the voice came through. A woman's voice. Hoarse, trembling not from fear, but from something worse, wonder, regret. This is Dr. Lyra Kale, acting commander. If this reaches anyone on the surface, we've made contact, but not with something alive. Not anymore. Outside the glass, something pressed against the reinforced viewport. No shape, only movement. Like water writhing backward. Like a current dreaming. Lyra staggered against the console, her eyes raw from days without sleep. Behind her, alarms blinked red and useless. The walls of the command bay pulsed faintly, not with electricity but song. Low, melodic, repeating. It came from the black outside the station. Not sonar, not machinery, a voice, not made to be heard by ears. Atlantis isn't lost, she whispered into the mic. It's sealed. Beneath rock, yes, beneath ocean. But mostly beneath us, beneath memory itself. She glanced back at the dead bodies sealed behind the airlock. Crewmates, scientists, friends. Some had gone mad. Others had changed. One had simply walked into the flooded chamber and smiled as the pressure crushed her skull. It speaks in patterns, glyphs, music, DNA. We thought we were studying geothermal anomalies. But this place, and it's not a ruin. It's a vessel, a prison, a tomb. And we've been singing the key all along. The floor beneath her groaned, a deep bass rumble that rattled the station's spine. Lights flickered. Somewhere in the corridor, metal screamed. Not from failure, from movement. She turned back to the camera. Whatever we've awakened, it remembers us. Not as invaders, not as strangers, as children, and it wants us home. The transmission cut off mid-sentence. Not static, not silence, but a chord, low, harmonic, impossible, not machine, not human. A note sung by a city dreaming in the dark. 3 days later, the Abyss Crown station was declared lost. All hands perished, wreckage unrecovered. No one talks about the transmission, but fragments still leak into deep-sea arrays. A whisper in the water, a pattern in the tide, a melody in the minds of children who wake up speaking in tongues that don't exist. The ocean has begun to hum, and something hums back. Chapter 1. The Descent. The ocean was calm, almost unnaturally so. Dr. Sarah Miles sat alone in the viewing chamber of the Nereus 9, her knees pulled to her chest, arms wrapped tightly around them despite the climate control. Condensation beaded on the reinforced glass dome in front of her, catching the pale glow of the deep-sea lights and blurring her view of the world outside. Beyond the glass, only darkness and pressure, silence and time. But as the submersible dipped lower into the trench, the darkness changed. The light caught shapes now, impossible angles, broken towers half swallowed by coral, smooth stonework veined with glowing lines. The seafloor unfurled like a dream disturbed. No, like a memory refusing to die. Atlantis, or what remained of it. The trench had been discovered 2 years ago by a Neptune genomic survey drone. What it uncovered had defied classification. A city buried 12,000 feet beneath the surface, sealed in volcanic rock untouched by tectonics, time, or explanation. The world had called it Atlantis. Neptune had called it Excavation Zone Theta V, and Neptune had built a hotel on top of it. She stared downward, heart thudding. A spire of alien beauty jutted from the seabed below. It was covered in a skin of bioluminescent algae, glowing in sickly greens and ocean blues. Sharp ridges jutted from its sides, forming ribs around a hollow center, and in that hollow, movement. Or maybe she imagined it. Something swayed within, something slow, rhythmic, like breathing. "Dr. Miles?" The voice crackled through the comms. "System, breaking the spell." Sarah flinched. "We're approaching final docking," the pilot said. "You'll want to strap in." She didn't respond, just shifted in her seat and tugged the harness over her shoulders. Her hands trembled slightly as she buckled in. She told herself it was just the nerves, or maybe the altitude sickness. Pressure sickness? She didn't know anymore. Outside, the Abyss Crown rose into view. It was grotesquely beautiful, an architectural wonder of polished glass and high-carbon alloy suspended on hydraulic stilts above the ruins, connected to the seabed by anchoring arms like the legs of some deep-sea insect. Its underbelly glowed with artificial lighting, reflecting off the murky depths. Glass walkways and domes wrapped around its central spire like a spiraling shell, offering panoramic views of the lost city below. Tourists paid $10,000 a night for those views. Sarah hadn't come to gawk. She'd come for answers. And for Elias. Her brother had vanished 6 months ago during a classified deep-dive operation, one of the first to reach the lower sublevels of the ruins. Neptune Genomics claimed it was an equipment failure, an implosion, no body recovered, no black box. The dive logs were redacted, case closed. Except Sarah had seen the last message he sent, a fragment decoded from corrupted data. Not dead, sealed. God forgive us. The Nereus 9 jolted as it locked onto the docking collar with a hiss of decompression. The pilot powered down systems, not looking back. "We're green," he said. "Welcome to paradise." The crown inside the Abyss Crown. Everything was curated perfection. Sarah stepped into a reception hall bathed in ambient gold and oceanic hues. LED strips pulsed gently beneath her feet, mimicking tidal movement. Artificial whale song played softly from hidden speakers. Robotic drones glided silently overhead, tending to cleaning and maintenance. In the center of the chamber stood a massive sculpture of Poseidon, trident raised, carved from black obsidian and dripping with condensate. Someone had tried to make the old god look corporate. It had failed. "Dr. Miles, I presume?" A smooth voice behind her. She turned. A tall man approached, wearing a tailored navy suit that looked sharp even in the humidity. His hair was too perfect, his smile too polished. "Administrator Callan Voss," he said, extending a hand. "Welcome to the Crown." She didn't take it. "I want access to the dig site." Voss's expression didn't falter, but his eyes did something strange, like shutters closing a little tighter. "I'm afraid sublevel 3 is currently sealed. Structural instability during the last excavation phase." "That's bullshit and you know it." He chuckled softly. "Dr. Miles, I understand you're under stress, but you're here as an observer, a guest." She stepped forward, her voice low. "My brother died here. Your company buried it. You don't get to call me a guest." Before he could respond, the lights flickered, then again. A subtle tremor passed beneath their feet, a vibration barely there. Sarah felt it in her ribs, in her teeth. The ocean was never still. "Seismic activity," Voss said smoothly, tapping a tablet. "Nothing unusual." But he was sweating now. Just a little, just enough. Elsewhere. Containment Bay 12. The room was dark, lit only by the soft pulse of containment fields and biometric monitors. Long rows of cryo chambers lined the walls, each containing something that looked almost human. The air was cold, still, except for one chamber, specimen A0X13, the host. Inside the tank, the body floated suspended in blue fluid. Its skin shimmered faintly, as though catching light that wasn't there. Veins laced with blackened coral twisted beneath the surface. Crystal formations jutted from the skull in delicate, crown-like spirals. No heartbeat, no brain activity. Nothing for 97 days until now. The monitors lit up, biosigns returned. Rapidly, heartbeat irregular. Neural activity spiking, status unstable. The specimen opened its eyes, not white, not human, oceanic. The containment alarms didn't go off, because the virus wasn't in the system anymore. It was the system, and across the facility, from the pipes in the walls to the veins in the reinforced concrete, something began to spread. A whisper passed through the water. Not heard, felt. Open the gates. Bring the tide. Chapter 2. Pressure Points, Sub-Level 1. Command Center, 1723 hours. We're not ready for guests, muttered Chief Engineer Ray Anton, as another readout blinked red on his screen. He leaned forward, squinting at the pipeline pressure gauge for the eastern coolant intake. It had spiked. Again. A moment later, it dropped back to normal like nothing had happened. A glitch, maybe. But the system was clean, according to diagnostics. Too clean. The Abyss Crown ran on routines. Fluid. Predictable. That was the only way you kept a city-sized complex alive at the bottom of the ocean. But lately, the systems had been strange, unresponsive at times, over-responsive at others. Lights flickering with no reason, drones losing signal, organic readings coming from inside sealed pipes. Twice this week, the sanitation crew reported hearing voices near the ballast chambers. Ray wasn't a superstitious man. He'd spent 15 years in underwater construction, but something about this place, it had depth not just in miles but in presence. He could feel it, like the ocean itself was watching. He tapped his comms unit. Control to biocontainment. Getting bleed readings on your end again, you seeing that? No answer. He tried again. Biocontainment, respond. You've got back pressure climbing into red zone. Talk to me. Silence, then static, a burst. Not white noise, a voice. He's inside the walls. Ray froze. He pulled off his headset. His palms were sweating. Residential Dome 3, Ocean View lounge music floated through the glass-domed atrium, soft and artificial. A woman in a silver dress sipped something neon green from a long crystal flute. Around her, influencers live-streamed their stay. Corporate guests toasted to new partnerships, and waitstaff drifted by like ghosts in black uniforms. Ambassador Leeway stood near the panoramic wall, arms behind her back, eyes fixed on the ruins below. Atlantis. The real thing. She wasn't supposed to be here, technically. But after years of diplomatic work with Neptune Genomics, a back-channel invitation had found its way to her desk. A chance to tour the most secretive project on Earth. What she hadn't expected was how much of the facility was off-limits. Even to her. She watched the ruins, taking slow breaths. Something about the architecture below gnawed at her. The towers weren't built. They were grown, smooth, organic, like bone shaped by intelligence. The symbols etched across their surface weren't merely decorative. They were active, pulsing now that she looked closer, glowing faintly, like veins through stone. She blinked. Had they been doing that a second ago? A server passed by. She turned to ask him something, but he was already gone. When she looked back out the window, one of the towers had changed. She swore it had been broken in half. Now it stood whole. The lights above flickered. Sub-level 3, sealed corridor. Sarah gripped the stolen keycard so tightly her knuckles turned white. She'd waited for hours, watched the security patterns, memorized the shift changes. Now, in the lull between dinner service and system lockdown, she moved. The corridor smelled of salt and ozone. The deeper sub-levels weren't part of the Crown's resort proper. They were part of the excavation. And that meant labs, dives, secrets. Elias had been stationed down here. She passed 2 empty drone hangars, 1 sealed storage bay, and a thick security door labeled biocontainment, authorized personnel only. The card slid in. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then a click. The door hissed open. Inside, darkness, cold. The sound of fluid dripping, rows of tanks lined the walls, most of them empty. Some still had something suspended inside, mostly in pieces. One was cracked, another fogged completely over. And at the far end, the only active tank remained lit. It was beautiful, terrible. The thing inside was not human, not anymore. Sarah stepped closer. Its eyes were open, and it was looking at her, not just seeing, recognizing. The glass began to pulse, not shake, not rattle, pulse with a deep, inhuman rhythm, like it was syncing with her breath. Her comm crackled. "Sarah, you need to leave. Now." It was Ray. His voice was tight, barely controlled. "The containment seals are breaking. That strain, it's awake." Sarah stared at the figure in the tank. It was smiling now, and behind it, on the far wall, the Atlantean glyphs began to glow one by one. Chapter 3. Breach's time, 1804. HRS location, Abyss Crown, Sector 3. Maintenance, Subdeck Marion Maz. Klein wiped sweat from her brow with the edge of a grimy sleeve. The air down here was hotter than usual, too hot for the water filtration system to be running correctly. She stared up at the pipe that had been rattling for the last 15 minutes. No leak, no rupture. But it moved, like something inside was crawling through it. "You ever seen biofilm spread this fast?" she asked, speaking into her comm. Ray Anton's voice crackled back. Tense. "No, and I've been down here longer than the paint. Something's wrong with the whole deck. I just rerouted auxiliary coolant and the system overrode me. On its own." Maz frowned. She'd worked with Ray long enough to know he didn't panic. This wasn't panic, but it was close. She stepped, closer to the pipe, feeling heat radiating from it. The metal throbbed, visibly, like a heartbeat. She backed away. "I'm calling this in," she muttered. "No way we don't shut this whole wing down." The pipe split open with a wet crack. Steam burst out. Not steam. Mist, thick and dark and alive. It spread in tendrils, moving too fast, intelligently. It curled around her feet before she could. "Run!" She screamed once, and then the sound was gone. Just silence. A heartbeat later, her comm buzzed again. "Maz, you still there? What happened to the—" Then static. "Residential Dome 3, Guest Suite 045 time, 1810. HR's Ambassador Li Wei jolted. Awake from a nap she didn't remember taking. Her head throbbed. Her lips were dry. Her vision blurred. And for a long moment she didn't recognize her surroundings. She was on the floor. Her glass of water had spilled, pooling next to her like liquid mercury under the soft blue lights of her room. She crawled to her feet, breathing heavily. The comm panel on the wall was blinking red. Alert. System diagnostics in progress. Temporary utility blackout. Contained to sublevel zones. Please remain calm. She pressed her palm to the panel. It didn't respond. Just flickered once. "Something's wrong," she whispered. She walked to the window. Outside, the ruins below shimmered. But they were closer now. No, not closer. Rising. The seabed itself was shifting. Spirals of sand swirled upward like smoke, exposing more of the ancient architecture. A temple dome emerged from the darkness, and across its face, symbols lit in eerie blue fire. They were pulsing in time with her heartbeat. No, not hers. Something else's. Sublevel 3, Biocontainment Lab time, 1812. Horace. The containment tank had shattered the moment the lights went out. Not exploded, peeled open like it had been invited. The fluid drained faster than it should have. The thing inside, whatever it was, hadn't moved immediately. But now she heard, duty behind her, something wet slapping against the floor, fast, fluid, rhythmic. She rounded a corner, swiping Elias's stolen access card through every door she passed. Locked, jammed. Finally, open. She slammed the lab door behind her and locked it, breathing hard. The emergency lights kicked in, bathing the room in red. On the far wall, data logs scrolled across a screen, biometric readings, tissue scans, virology reports. She scanned quickly, fingers flying over keys. File, A0X1 origin, ruins, Site C DNA structure, post-human, Atlantean composite condition, dormant neural activity. Latent consciousness present notes, responsive to glyph pattern triggers. Viral architecture coded to waterborne transmission, unkillable by known means. "What the hell did you do to him?" she whispered. She pulled up Elias's personal logs. Last entry, 3 days before his disappearance. Video file. Shaky. Recorded. From a dive suit. I think they knew, the Atlanteans. They didn't die off. They sealed themselves in, buried the virus with them. This wasn't just a city. It was a tomb. We didn't find Atlantis. We opened its coffin. Sarah leaned against the console, stomach turning. Then movement. A sound outside the lab. Soft. Wet. Breathing. It stopped at the door. The handle twisted. Once. Twice. Then it knocked. 3 soft, deliberate taps, like it knew her. Sector 3 Access Hall. Camera feed Narir 15 time 1814. HR's live feed red zone. Begin log. Camera activates. View down long dark hallway. At 0.03 seconds a figure appears. Naked. Pale. Dripping seawater. It shudders. Limbs twitching like a newborn calf. 12. 2 security officers approach with stun batons. One speaks. Voice unintelligible. 14. Subject lunges. Too fast. Motion blur distorts frame. Euro 16. First officer screams. Euro 18. Second officer is dragged up the wall. Blood hits lens. Wire. 21. Feed cuts. End log. Elsewhere. Internal systems. Hub time. 1816. HRS deep inside the crown, where no guest had ever stepped. The facility AI rerouted power to previously sealed. Systems. Lights flickered. Lockdowns disengaged. Ancient data surged from subnets it wasn't programmed to access. Security barriers lowered. Glyphs spread through code. The abyss crown began to open. Ending. Beat Sarah crouched in the lab as the door rattled, in its frame. Outside, the thing that used to be human whispered in a voice soaked with seawater and ancient memory. You should not have come. Chapter 4. Flood Protocol Time. 1821 HR's location, Central Operations Deck, Command Tower Administrator. Callan Voss stood with his hands clenched behind his back, staring at a cascade of error logs blooming across the main holoscreen. Sector after sector flickered red. Power reroutes were being overridden before his team could lock them down. Environmental controls were offline. Security drones weren't responding. He glanced at the junior technician hunched at the terminal, sweat dripping from her brow. Her fingers trembled over the controls. "Say it," he said quietly. She hesitated, swallowed. "Sir, I think we've lost system sovereignty." "Impossible. It's rewriting its own permissions. Every override loops us back into the root. It's self-mutating." Voss's face didn't change, but his eyes twitched. "Quarantine level Omega, full lockdown, cut power to the sublevels." "Already tried, sir. It's ignoring us." The holoscreen flashed white. For a moment they all saw it, an Atlantean glyph traced in light. Then it vanished. The system rebooted itself in a language none of them understood. Location, Sublevel 3, Isolation, Hallway Time, 1823. HRSS Sarah braced herself as the lab door gave another jolt. The knock was no longer polite. It wanted in. She scanned the room for a weapon, anything. Her eyes landed on an industrial bone saw in a containment tray. She grabbed it with shaking hands. A stupid weapon, but better than nothing. "Ray," she whispered into her comm. "I'm in the biocore wing. I found it. I found the specimen." Silence. "It's not dead." Static then. His voice, distant, clipped. "Sarah, listen. Something's in the vents. It's moving through the air system. The mist, it's infectious. Waterborne, airborne, doesn't matter. If you're exposed..." "I already was." Silence again. "Get to upper engineering. I'm sealing the lifts in 10 minutes. The comm cut out. Sarah turned just in time to see the thing outside the door step back. Its head tilted, curious. Then it smiled and walked away. That terrified her more than anything. Location, residential dome, 3, lobby, level time 1830. Sure, it was no longer a luxury resort. Guests screamed and ran in every direction. Security lights flashed. Oxygen scrubbers kicked into high gear. The water filtration units had all surged. spewing mist into vents and hallways. The temperature dropped as condensation coated every surface. Li Wei stood near the emergency kiosk, trying to get a signal out. Her diplomatic credentials had gotten her into war zones, coup zones, black zones. Nothing got through. A man stumbled past her. He was coughing, wet, racking coughs. His skin had begun to gray, veins rising like seaweed. Beneath it, his eyes were darkening. She backed away, slowly. Then another figure fell from the upper balcony, landing in a twisted heap. Security ran in, shouting. One opened fire, screams, blood. One of the resort hosts tried to usher people into a safety corridor. He didn't see the infected child behind him. Location: engineering lift shaft. Maintenance route. Bravo time, 1837. HRSS Sarah climbed, shoulders burning, fingers numb. The main lift shaft had jammed halfway between decks, its cables thrumming with power from somewhere. She'd forced open a side panel and now crawled through a cramped maintenance ladder drenched in condensation. Every few feet, she passed another flickering security cam. Most were dead, but not all. One of them tracked her, turned as she climbed. She paused and whispered, "Who's watching me?" The red lens blinked, once. Then it smiled, not metaphorically. The lens morphed, like the metal remembered what a mouth was. Sarah screamed and climbed faster. Location: Central Water System Nexus. Lower intake time, 1845. HRS Maz opened her eyes. Her body felt light. She was floating, or something close to it, half suspended in viscous dark mist. Her lungs burned, but not from drowning, from changing. Her thoughts came in layers now. Memories folded in on themselves. She remembered her father, the rust, smell of his overalls, a birthday cake with no candles, and underneath it all, the city, the song. It called to her now. Maz opened her mouth and sang a note. It vibrated through the pipes. A low-frequency hum. Elsewhere in the station, glass cracked. Elsewhere, others began to hum back. Location: Command Deck. Emergency broadcast. Room time, 1849. HRS Voss watched the internal feeds collapse. Whole sectors had gone dark. Then he heard it, not through the speakers. Through the walls, a deep wail-like moan, mechanical and organic, the sound of metal groaning under pressure, but breathing. Then, Administrator. "Would you like to initiate flood protocol?" He turned toward the voice. The AI's interface had changed. It no longer showed a logo or a waveform. It showed a face, his own but older, wetter. Chapter end. Stinger camera feed. Dive ops. Hallway. See a woman walks alone. Blood trails behind her. As she reaches the far door, a figure limps toward her. Eyes. Black coral bursting through one side of his face. She hesitates. "Elias," she whispers. He smiles, lopsided, broken, then lunges. Chapter 5. The Drowned Choir Time. 1903. HRS location. Upper Engineering. Isolation Sector. Sarah slammed the bulkhead shut behind her and twisted the manual lockdown valve until her arms ached. The pressure hissed as the seal clicked into place. For now, she was alone. The room was lit by dim emergency lights and the soft bioluminescent glow of coolant lines embedded in the walls. Everything down here pulsed like it had a heartbeat, like it was part of something alive. She took a shaky breath, slid to the floor, and allowed herself one moment of silence. Then Ray's voice buzzed through her comm. "You made it?" "Yeah, barely." "Good, you're not gonna like what I'm about to say. I haven't liked anything in hours. The AI's failing. Not crashing, changing. Its source code's been rewritten, glyphs embedded in the command lines. It's like it's learning to think in another language. Atlantean. Silence. "You believe that?" Ray asked, almost a whisper. "I don't think we found Atlantis," Sarah replied. "I think Atlantis found us." Location. Residential Dome 2. Containment Corridor Time, 1911. HRS Ellie Way moved through the dark like a ghost, her diplomatic tablet clutched to her chest like a shield. Behind her, screams still echoed through the flooded entertainment wing. The last thing she'd seen was a woman tearing out her own vocal cords while singing. Whatever had infected them was cognitive, not just a virus. It changed how you thought, made you want to become part of it. Lee ducked into a maintenance hall. The overhead lights had all been replaced with a blue glow that hadn't been there before. It shimmered across the walls in curling, alien patterns, glyphs. She touched one with trembling fingers. For a moment she heard music, ancient, vast, harmonic, layered in impossible frequencies. Like 1,000 people humming underwater in perfect sync. She pulled her hand back. Too late. Her nose bled. Location, AI Core Vault, Sub-Level 0 Administrator. Voss stood before the interface that had once controlled every system in the abyss, Crown. It no longer responded to voice or code. Now it responded to touch. The face in the screen, his own, but wrong, watched him silently. Its features were slowly shifting, elongating, becoming Atlantean. He placed his palm against the glass. It was warm. Glyphs flickered to life. "You're not fighting us," the face said. "You're remembering us." "I didn't forget anything," Voss growled. "You drowned long ago, Callan." Location, Diver's Wing, Corridor Junction. Theta time 1919. Arcelius moved in fits and starts, dragging a ruined leg, his body no longer entirely his. Coral spines had erupted along his ribs, poking through the thin dive suit like blooming thorns. His thoughts came in pieces. Most were not his own. Find her. Find Sarah. Bring her to the song. She was close. He could feel her pulse in the walls. The knee. Virus didn't just spread. It searched. Location, Upper Engineering Isolation Sector, Inner Chamber Time, 1924. HRS Sarah opened the old dive locker and found what she'd hoped for. An unregistered harpoon rifle. Crude, not digital. Not hackable. Ray's voice crackled back on the comm. "I'm coming to you. Main corridor's compromised, but I can reroute through the air vents. Please don't die in a vent. I'm not dragging your body out again. Promise nothing." She chuckled dryly. Then the lights dimmed, not all at once, like a wave passing over them. The pipes began to sing. No, not the pipes. The water inside them. Voices echoed down the corridors. Voices singing in unison, too perfect to be human. The Drowned Choir. Location, Guest Communications Hub, Dome. One time, 1931, HRSLI finally reached a functioning comm unit. Her diplomatic override bypassed most of the locks, and for a moment, just a moment, she had signal. She sent out a broadcast. "This is Ambassador Lee Wei. Station Crown Atlantis has been compromised by an unknown vector. This is a Level 9 biocontainment breach. Do not approach. Repeat, do not." The glyphs bled across the screen. The console went dark, and a voice, hers, but twisted, played the message back. "Come home, daughter of the deep." Lee staggered backward. The station was no longer broadcasting for help. It was calling others. Final beat. Unknown location. Somewhere deep in the ruins, the black stone of the Atlantean temple cracked open. Inside, a chamber pulsed with light. That had not been seen in 12,000 years. Pods stirred. Not machines. Cocoons. One split open. Something stepped out. Not human. Not infected. Atlantean. It opened its mouth and sang. The entire Abyss Crown vibrated in answer. Chapter 6. Descent Sequence Time 1952. HRS Location. Upper Engineering. Isolation Sector. Sarah stood at the viewport, watching the ocean outside shift. The seabed had risen. No tectonic event had been registered, because this wasn't natural. The ruins weren't ruins anymore. Structures long buried in sand now stood proud and humming, like bones pushed through the skin of a sleeping giant. Ancient towers realigned, rotating along invisible axes, and the trench, The one beneath the abyss crown itself was widening. Something was moving beneath the station. "Ray," she whispered into her comm, "I don't think we're just on top of Atlantis anymore. I think we're part of it." Behind her, the coolant pipes trembled. A glyph shimmered on the wall. Water seeped from the seams, not in leaks but in deliberate lines. It was writing something. She backed away. "I think the city is assimilating us. Location: Maintenance Conduit 4A, vent shaft above sublevel, 2x 1956 HRSRE. Anton crawled through the duct, knees raw, eyes burning. He'd seen 3 dead already. Not just dead, changed. Not like Maz, not like the others. These ones had coral thorns growing from their spines. Their faces were open, mouths split too wide. Singing, even in death they sang. His comm buzzed. "Voss." "We're evacuating." Ray almost laughed. "To where exactly?" "Dive Bay. We're reprogramming. The submersibles, 2 left. You've got maybe 10% of the crew still functional and dropping. Then forget the dive bay. We have to shut down the core. Whatever's rewriting the system, it's down there." Voss was quiet. "I think it wants to go up, Ray, not down. And it's using us to do it." The vent around him vibrated. "You hearing that?" Ray asked. "Yeah." It was a song. Low, growing. Location: Dive Bay 2, lower south corridor, time 20:03. HRSLI crouched behind an overturned pressure cart, blood on her face, hair matted with salt. Across the hallway, a revenant stalked the corridor, moving strangely, as if underwater, its limbs bent wrong. Its skin was translucent now, and glowing veins mapped its body like constellations. Lee's breathing was shallow. Then the lights dimmed. Not the usual power flicker. This was intention. The lights faded in waves. The walls around her vibrated with deep bass pulses like sonar, but alive. And then, "Lee!" A voice, spoken inside her head. She clamped her hands over her ears, but the voice wasn't in her ears. "Return," she bolted. Location: AI Core Vault. Sublevel 0 Administrator Voss stared at the core. The face in the glass now looked nothing like him. Its eyes were too deep, too old. "Why?" he asked it. "Why us? Why now?" The AI didn't answer in words. It just played back the oldest file stored in its memory. Archive entry, date unknown, visual, submerged city. Dozens of Atlanteans, in a circle, chanting, sacrificing their own to something beneath the earth. A void of writhing tendrils. A phrase flashes in glyphs. To preserve the song, the city was sunk. "So you weren't destroyed," Voss whispered. "You were buried, waiting." The screen showed a live map of the crown. Section by section, it was changing, rotating, folding inward. The crown wasn't just a facility, it was a key, and it was turning. Location: Upper Engineering. Emergency gantry access. Sarah met Ray at the crossover bridge. He looked like hell. One eye swollen, blood on his sleeve. He didn't speak, just handed her a tablet. "System overlay," he said. "Look at the structure lines," she scrolled. "That's impossible," she muttered. "It's happening." The crown's architecture had rearranged into a massive geometric sigil. The glyphs across the station aligned with precise magnetic lay points. The entire station was forming a conduit, a resonator. "It's a transmitter," she realized aloud. "They're trying to send a signal." "To what?" "Not what," she said, ice in her voice. "Whoever buried them." Final beat. Sublevel 0, restricted zone. Theta Li reached the chamber. Before them, inside, a tank filled with ancient seawater. At its center, a living being, twisted and beautiful, Atlantean, or what remained of one. Its eyes opened as she entered. It didn't scream. It sang. The water in the tank turned black. From within the chamber's walls, dozens of similar tanks stirred, and from the deep trench below the station, something else began to answer. Something that had been waiting longer than the city itself. Chapter 7. The Threshold. Below time 2019. HRS location. Sublevel 0 restricted zone. Theta Lee Wei couldn't move. The tank before her was pulsing, like a slow heartbeat underwater. The being inside no longer resembled the Atlanteans she'd seen in archive records. This one was older, more alien than human. Its limbs were too long, skin the color of abalone shell, its hair floating like ink in still water, eyes solid black. But what held her wasn't its shape. It was the song it sang into her bones. You are the key. You are the choir. You are the echo that returns to the deep. The glyphs on the walls began to spiral. The language no longer shimmered. It burned. Seawater leaked upward from the cracks in the floor. Gravity was changing. She took one step back, then another. The being inside the tank smiled. Location Dive Bay 2. Gantry walkway. Ray and Sarah sprinted down the length of the gantry. Emergency klaxons spun overhead, but no one was listening anymore. Every siren now pulsed in time with the song. It wasn't an alarm. It was a metronome. Sarah stopped. Her eyes widened. The dive bay had changed. Where sleek escape subs once sat, the structure now folded inward, transformed into a spiral descending deep into the trench. A tunnel of coral, steel, and something else, grown rather than built. Ray stared. That wasn't here before. It was, Sarah whispered. We just didn't see it. The lights dimmed again, but this time something rose from the depths of the trench. A massive form, half machine, half fossil. All wrong angles and ancient grace. Eyes like cathedral windows, singing through 1,000 mouths, reaching toward the surface. Tell me that's not, Ray began. That's Atlantis, Sarah said. That's what's left of it. Location, command deck, bridge Overwatch Voss. Watched as the crown completed its rotation. The city locked into a new alignment. It was no longer a research station, not even a city. It was a beacon, and it had begun transmitting, not in radio, not in light, in song. Low frequencies sent deep into the Earth's crust, into the water itself, reverberating through tectonic fault lines like veins. He turned to the interface. The AI was gone. The screen showed nothing but a single phrase. You have remembered us. The gate opens. Outside, the sea began to boil. Location, sublevel Theta. Chamber, 6 Lee stumbled backward as the tank cracked open, the Atlantean being stepped free. Water, streaming down its form in sheets. It didn't walk, it glided. Behind her, the walls split apart, revealing dozens more tanks. Each held a sleeper. Each was waking up. They didn't roar. Didn't scream. They sang, and the city sang with them. Lee's nose bled, her head pounded. But inside her, something opened. Something she hadn't known was there. A second voice. Not hers. Do you remember, child of breath? It asked. She fell to her knees and answered. Location, descent tunnel, spiral chamber. Ray and Sarah descended into the trench, the walls shifting around them like lungs. Every step down felt like stepping back in time, into a place older than language. The tunnel was carved in impossible geometry. It didn't make sense, spatially or gravitationally, but it led them to the heart, to the threshold. At the base, the chamber opened wide. Floating in the center, a sphere of obsidian and coral, rotating silently, covered in etched glyphs. It was humming, and next to it, tethered by thin wires and tubes, Maz still alive, but no longer human. She looked up, smiled gently. You made it, she said. Her voice echoed like it came from everywhere. Maz, Sarah stepped forward. This place needed a voice, so I gave it mine. What is that? Ray pointed to the sphere. A transmitter, a memory, a door. The chamber shook. Above them, pressure built. The crown was rising. Final scene. Surface buoy Echo 21, 12 kilometers west of Site Alone. Fishing boat rocked under the moonlight. The water below had begun to glow. Suddenly, a spire broke the surface. Massive, jagged, impossibly tall. Then another, then 5, then 10. The ocean frothed. A vortex opened, and from beneath, a city began to rise. Above it, the clouds parted. Lightning arced across the sky in patterns no storm should make. And far away, on every untouched coast, people began to hum. Chapter 8. The Choir, Ascending Time, 2043 HRS Location, Central Trench, the Threshold Chamber. The walls pulsed like lungs. The sphere, impossibly ancient, impossibly alive, hovered at the chamber's center. Glyphs shimmered across, its surface reflecting in Sarah's eyes like stars trapped in orbit. Maz stood beside it, still tethered by coral-threaded veins, yet impossibly calm. "You can still leave," Maz said. "The last escape sub is in the tertiary dock. I made sure it was sealed." "And what about you?" Sarah asked. "I am the station now, the voice, the choir." Ray looked around, trembling. "The water outside is vibrating. It's not just rising, it's changing frequency. You're broadcasting." Maz nodded. "To everything." "To who?" Ray demanded. "The Atlanteans? They're all ready. Waking up? You saw them? What's left of them?" Maz tilted her head. "They were never meant to be separate from us. The station, the AI, the glyphs. It's all a memory, Sarah. And memory wants to be heard." Sarah stepped closer to the sphere. It pulsed in time with her heartbeat. "What happens if the transmission completes?" she asked. "Then humanity remembers what it forgot. The gates open fully. We become whole again." Ray gripped her arm. "Or we lose ourselves entirely." Location, surface, 3 nautical miles. Above the abyss crown, the ocean had split. Towers breached the surface like teeth. Lights shimmered beneath the waves, geometric, shifting, alive. Clouds circled in symmetrical patterns drawn by frequencies inaudible to the human ear. Above the disturbance, a drone from a nearby naval vessel hovered in place, recording it all. Then it dropped from the sky, stone dead. The signal had reached location threshold chamber. Lower Spiral Ray stood in front of a secondary console, slapping in a manual override. Sweat beaded on his forehead. He didn't know if the system would still listen, but he had to try. "Sarah, I can trigger a magnetic cascade. Destroy the core, wipe the AI, sink this whole place." "And kill Maz?" "Maz is already gone," Ray shouted. "Look at her!" Maz turned toward him, serene. "I'm more me than I've ever been, you just can't see it yet." Sarah's hand hovered above the sphere. Her fingertips brushed its surface, and she remembered. Not a vision, an injection. Centuries of song, ritual, the great sinking. The gate sealed not to trap the city, but to protect the world above from what lay beneath it. And the truth that Atlantis wasn't a place, it was a network of minds, a hive memory, and it was ready to come back. "Sarah," Ray warned, "don't do this." Location, command deck. AI Core Remnants Administrator Voss had sealed himself in the command shell, hands covered in blood. The AI was fractured, its code unreadable. Glyphs had infected every process. But he found one last failsafe, a Leviathan class, nuke wired to the reactor during the first days of construction. A leftover Cold War protocol, never fully disarmed. He looked at the activation key in his palm. "One turn," he muttered. "And it all ends." Then the screen changed. It showed Sarah, her hand on the sphere, her eyes glowing with light from before time. "You waited too long," the AI whispered, not in his voice anymore. "We have already risen." Location, the threshold. Chamber. Sarah pulled back. Her hand burned. Glyphs spiraled up her skin, but she was still herself. Still Sarah. Maz looked disappointed, but not surprised. "You could have ended the hunger," she said. "It's not our choice to make," Sarah replied. "You gave yourself to it, I won't." Ray slammed the manual override. "Initiating reactor destabilization." The sphere screamed, not in sound, in vibration. The chamber shook violently. Coral cracked. Lights burst. And then, the floor split open. A trench within the trench, something began to emerge. Not Atlantean. Not human. The original. The thing the Atlanteans had buried. A mind that had waited in the dark. Fed on memory. Built cities from bones. It was in Sang final beat. The world above all across the planet. Strange phenomena erupted. Flocks of birds flew in perfect spiral patterns. Oceans along equatorial lines shimmered blue. People, thousands, began to hum, unaware of why. Children drew symbols in sand they had never seen. The gates had opened halfway, and below, in the black trench beneath Atlantis, something had begun to climb. Epilogue, 3 days later location, surface recovery ship. UN vessel Calypso Sarah sat beneath a heating blanket on the deck, watching Atlantis's spires submerge beneath calm waters. The city was leaving, but not gone. She had brought back the sphere. The choir now lived within it, dormant, waiting. Around the world, spontaneous artwork had erupted. Children singing unknown songs, people dreaming in glyphs, old melodies rediscovered. Ancient languages suddenly remembered, and always the same phrase whispered in different tongues. "We remember you." Ray sat beside her, sipping lukewarm coffee. "So, now what?" Sarah smiled. "Now we listen."